Just to make one example, BuzzFeed put together a wonderful selection of comparisons that I think if anybody honest were to read it properly, they'd have to abandon any opinion, even close to the one that Jason was sharing earlier. Here's the same newspaper, right? Both of these stories come from the Mail. And they're about, one is about Kate Middleton and one is about Meghan Markle, to use their maiden names. Not long to go, pregnant Kate tenderly cradles her baby bump while wrapping up her royal duties ahead of maternity leave. And William confirms she's due any minute now. So that's the Mail talking about Kate Middleton's baby bump during her pregnancy. Why can't Meghan Markle keep her hands off her bump? Experts tackle the question that has got the nation talking. Is it pride, vanity, acting, or a new age bonding technique? So there are two women doing exactly the same thing. They are cradling their baby bump. Okay? Two women doing two pregnant women in the royal family doing two pregnant women, both married to princes, doing exactly the same thing in exactly the same newspaper. One of them is tenderly cradling her baby bump, and one of them is posing the question that has got the nation talking. Is it pride, vanity, acting, or a new age bonding technique? And that's why the arguments, well, they shouldn't give so many interviews, or we shouldn't write books, or they shouldn't sign deals with Netflix, is so, forgive me, pathetic. They were doing that in 2019. In Meghan's case, and 9 months previously in Kate's. The same story. Two women from the same family doing the same thing, being reported in the same newspaper. And I wish I had some sort of ask the audience type device sometimes, like they have on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, because, you know, you can't hear me say that and cling to the view that you had before. If you were thinking, oh no, she's a wrong and no, it's rubbish, it's not media manipulation, it's all their own fault. No one's gaslit me. I'll arrive at my own conclusions. Thank you very much. You can't do that. You can't hear me, and that's only one example. I've got 5 more, 10 more, 20 more. But that is so direct, that comparison, that it beggars belief. Two women, both married to princes, in the same family, doing the same thing, reported in the same newspaper. One of them, pregnant Kate tenderly cradles her baby bump while wrapping up her royal duties ahead of maternity leave. The other one, why can't Meghan Markle keep her hands off her bump? Experts tackle the question that has got the nation talking. Is it pride, vanity, acting, or a new age bonding technique? Love to the family. Here's another one. You ready? Kate's morning sickness cure. This is nice. Two women, same family, both married to princes, both got morning sickness. No, I beg your pardon. Both. Well, I'll read you the story. Both in the Express, this one, which I think technically still qualifies as a newspaper. Kate's morning sickness cure, ? Prince William gifted with an avocado for pregnant Duchess. Isn't that lovely? So the story had been reported that Kate was suffering from morning sickness, and therefore a friendly member of the public who believed, I think it's an old wives' tale, that an avocado, well, I am probably the only person in England who still calls an avocado pear, an avocado would be a good cure for morning. Isn't that sweet? Another headline, same newspaper. Meghan Markle's beloved avocado linked to human rights abuse and drought. Millennial shame. That's a story about avocados. One avocado has been linked to Kate Middleton. Kate's morning sickness cure. Prince William gifted with an avocado for pregnant Duchess. Another avocado is linked to Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle's beloved avocado linked to human rights abuse and drought. Millennial shame. And now tell me that they brought it on themselves by doing all those interviews. Imis Yalua is in Fulham. Hello.
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Good. Good to speak to you.
Likewise. What's going on?
Actually, just before I start, I wanted to say your tribute to Kate Garraway's husband was very lovely. You did
I wish it
very
wasn't
right.
necessary, but it's very kind of you to say so. Thank you.
I know. You did very right by your friend, and I know it's a really tough time to have to do stuff like this in this time, so well done to you.
Thank you.
That was my first thing. My second thing is, and you and I have had plenty of conversations on this topic, but I mean, the most obvious one is a nice little bit of racism and sexism. It's always nice to be reminded of the society in which we live. And I think if there's one thing that you can that you can say that really kind of highlights that is the way that Andrew Windsor. I also love that he's no longer Prince Andrew on this show. I think that's
Not
great.
on this show. Although I'll
Andrew...
forget, you know how it works. I come up with these wizard wheezes. I've usually forgotten about them by 12:30. But I'll try. I'll say it. So it's disgraced former Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Andrew Windsor. So there we go. 2024 has started well. Carry on.
How Andrew Windsor is portrayed and how Harry and Meghan have been portrayed. And I'm not always the biggest Harry and Meghan fan.
Sure.
I do think sometimes they've gone too far, but I do think that in this case, this man used £12 million of his mother's money. Let's also get that straight. He didn't have any. He had to go and ask his mother for it to pay a woman who said that he raped her. And I think that what it shows us is that what we're willing to allow people to let us forget. Because I was saying to your researcher, the reason that we remember Harry so much is because he's kind of pushed in our face.
Yes.
It's constant. It's like, they did this, and they did this, and they did this, and the nation's talking about it. People are like, oh, okay, well, the nation's talking about it, therefore it must be happening. But what you do forget is that somebody has actually written that headline.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean that the nation was talking about it before, but they're talking about it now.
And the other point, of course, which I've forgotten to mention is, I guess I've got a couple more of these examples that are truly breathtaking, the baby bump and the avocado so far. But the tradition would be for a quid pro quo. So I think Harry's big grievance, and he talks about this in the book, in Spare, his big grievance is that they felt that they were just being hung out to dry and that these stories were not being pushed back against. There was nothing in the palace machinery that was protecting them in the way that it would have protected his brother and his wife.
No, I definitely agree. Like, there was no protection for them. But I also think, like, you have to remember what Meghan represents. Like, she's a mixed race woman, and the reality is that the British media doesn't see her as that. They kind of follow the one drop rule. Like, she's black. Like, and it's so alien to what they think royalty should be. It doesn't make sense. You can't look at that and think, oh, following the tradition of hundreds and hundreds of years, this is what a royal should be. No, she's bucked the trend. She's different.
So and it was always doomed then, in a way.
It was always doomed. It was always doomed. It was always doomed. Like, I remember when I heard it happened, I thought, why would you marry into this family? Why? Like, there's nothing about this family that makes you think that you, as the kind of woman you are, will be safe. They won't. No, they won't keep you safe. It's just not going to happen, and it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate, and we're seeing it now that the rehabilitation of a potentially a sexual predator. He was at Sandringham walking up and down like nothing happened.
Yes, that's just true. And you know, as you say, potentially or accusations and allegations with that constant side order of millions of pounds being paid out to one of his accusers. He was clearly embarked upon a sort of slow creep back into the setup, wasn't he? And these latest revelations and the response from the palace. Who will not have been taken by surprise by the front pages today, that this is a sort of a parting of the ways, time to give Andrew the chop, no way back. That's the Sun and the Mail, the two sort of biggest players in this market, clearly are singing from the same hymn sheet, and it's over for him. But the planet on which Andrew's plight situation is in any way comparable to Harry's doesn't exist except on Fleet Street. You know, the idea that Harry will have garnered more negative headlines over the last 5 years than his uncle Andrew. It's breathtaking, and I'm sure you're right, Miss Yulua, the notion of her being such a violent rejection of royal history. You know, you cannot rise to the top of our society in this country if you are like her. You just can't. And whether that is racism or not is very much up to you. For me, it is. You know, it's because you justify the existence of the royal family by buying into some sort of notion of human hierarchy. And one of the most insidious examples of any notion of human hierarchy is race-based. So if you're buying into the notion of human hierarchy, and then someone comes along who, according to your other human hierarchy, should be inferior to you, how can she end up being a princess? There it is. And unfortunately, having worked with and on some of these newspapers, with some of the people who've risen subsequently to positions of power, they do think like that. They would, whether consciously or not, they would have a huge problem with the idea of a woman of colour being above them in the food chain. I will bend the knee to Charles and Camilla. I will bend the knee to William and Kate. I'm not bending any knee, metaphorical or otherwise, to some mixed-race woman from America. God forbid. Snobbery and race, class and race, absolutely inextricable in a lot of cases, and rarely more so than in this one.